Dancing here on my own. My friends lost me, I need to go home.
John, we're back. Episode 3. 1 and 2 have been released now. Hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at those. But episode 3. Today we've got Luke Richmond on, which we're both very excited about. Just a incredible adventurer and speaker. So very excited to have him on shortly. You went for a paddle yesterday. You said it was hard work. How'd you go?
I did go for a paddle yesterday, and I found it really easy going the one way. I was thinking, geez, I'm really improving here. I'm getting stronger and all that sort of stuff. And then I turned around, and the river started pushing me back immediately. I'm like, okay, so the tide's coming in. So I've got a few Ks to do here of just hard grind, and that's what I did. I feel good today. So
well done.
You also went for a paddle yesterday. We should have just paddled together.
Yeah, but you would have worked beforehand, right?
I finished work at like 11 yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, I got in the water at about 11, so I could have worked. Anyway.
Yeah.
I went out to Happy Valley Reservoir. I had a goal to do just over 20K because then I would have completed 100K for June. So, I got that done. 4 laps, though. 4 laps feels like a lot.
It'd be boring seeing the same thing 4 times.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but like...
You're getting bored of the Onki, aren't you?
It's all getting boring. I did Glenelg, but it's like a 1K strip.
Yeah.
And it was so boring. So I was like weaving in and out of the boat areas and whatnot. And I wouldn't recommend doing that. That was so boring.
Did you come off at all with the bay?
No, I didn't come off.
That would have been funny.
Yeah, no. I don't come off anymore, John.
Oh, good for you. I didn't come off yesterday. My shirt was very dry.
Yeah, first time. We had a meeting with our initial team about a month ago.
The support team?
Yeah, which was really good. Just got to... I think we all left that chat feeling like we talked about things that we hadn't thought about and had covered off some things, which was, really good. So
we're all been talking about, where we're sleeping and that sort of stuff. How fast can we get down the river? How light can we travel on the boat? Or that sort of stuff. And then... of course, it was a year-old man who said, what about if you get bitten by a snake? Like, what about your EPIRBs if you get stuck in the middle of nowhere without reception? All stuff that we're just going gung-ho, not even thinking about.
Yeah, so some really good thoughts and points about that stuff. And things
stuff.
that we're able to all talk about and feel a lot more comfortable about, but things that needed to be raised. So, that was good.
A bunch of gear that Snowies will supply, but was stuff I hadn't even thought of yet. So glad he was there. Out to them after hearing from Ian and Michael and Rue and Dan from episode 1 and episode 2, who, if you've listened to the full length episodes, were very big on the team aspect of it, of how there was no chance they were completing anything without their team. And it made us realise that while we've got close family and whatnot that's going to help us, we're going to need more to get us as far as we want to go. And so we sent the message out to our primary group of mutual friends, which is probably 10, 15 people.
Yeah.
And literally all of them come back and said absolutely they're going to do 3-day stints sort of thing for most part. So
Water's a bit of a rotating roster of friends that'll drive out and meet us and spend a few days, which will be amazing. So
I assume it'll get much easier when we get in SA as well. We'll have the part-time friends that are happy to
easy to get to.
Happy to drive for a couple of hours instead of hop on a plane or something.
That'd be great.
Really grateful to all those guys that have committing to helping us out, because it's going to be tough for the support crew as well. It's not like a holiday.
No.
It'll be some hard work.
Not too much for us to go through here today. We're just really excited to get Luke on. We're going to kind of allow this episode to be pretty much all just Luke. I'll throw it over to Jono for a bit of an intro, and we'll get stuck in.
So we are really fortunate to have our next guest on, who I've been in contact with for quite a while now. We're really grateful that he's been able to jump on. Just let's list a few things he's done. I know I've missed a bunch here, but let's go. Rode across the Atlantic, rode the Tasman, kayaked the Murray River, completed the crossing of the Gobi Desert while dragging all his gear with him. Next one, he's climbed the highest peak on 6 continents, including Antarctica. He's cycled from cycled from Perth to Sydney, obviously in Australia. Led expeditions through Papua New Guinea. He's run ultra marathons, and it's just, I know I've forgotten a fair bit of stuff there, but we welcome Luke Richmond to the pod.
Lads, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
I was watching your wedding video, your base jump wedding video the other night, and just thought, like, that's just very, very cool. I was chatting to John on the way in here about how base jumping seems like the ultimate test of overcoming and control of fear, and it's something I've always been really drawn to. But I just want to ask, like, how do you work through the fear of something like that, and now doing it just as like a recreational fun thing to do?
Yeah, mate, absolutely. Fear is the right word when it comes to that sport. It was the one, I guess, pivotal point, and one of the biggest lessons I learned on adventures was about controlling fear, and that only came around when I started to base jump. I'd done a lot of big expeditions before that, got into the skydiving world, and then I got mentored into the base jumping world. Now, just to put an end note on it, I'm no longer base jumping. I pushed it hard for a few years. So before I get into how awesome it is a very, very dangerous sport. And I had a couple of really bad openings, and then I had a buddy die in the sport, and I said, right, that's enough. That's the last red flag for me. So I hung up my wing, or sold the wing, and took up paragliding instead, much safer. But the base jumping world, it's a unique one because for those that don't know what base jumping is, base stands for buildings, antenna, span, so your bridges, and earth. And the goal when you get into this sport as a newbie is to try and jump all of those objects. And that was my pure focus. So I sort of fast-tracked through the skydiving world to learn the canopy skills, landing skills, and just getting comfortable with that desensitization, really, of all of the stuff that's coming at you. And then travelled over to America with my army mentor, army buddy from back in the day, and we started on bridges. Then progressed into cliffs, then into buildings and antenna and all the craziness all around the world, and pushed it hard for a few years. And it was bloody awesome. It is the most incredible, euphoric moments or seconds of your life, because in the early stages of base jumping, that's really all you've got is these 3 to 5 to 10 to 20 seconds of beautiful euphoria when you're plummeting towards the ground with this just incredible rush of information and objects and wind and ground coming at you. And you have to pitch your parachute and save your life every single time. So it's a very unique combinations of sensations. But the biggest one and the most dangerous one is fear. So standing on the bridge on jump number 1, or right up until my last jump off a cliff, fear is always there. And your hands will be shaking and your heart rate's getting jacked up and you're getting very nervous. And it's a cascade of emotions that you have to control, or it can make you make a mistake. It can get you into a state where you're not really processing everything correctly, and that can get you killed in this sport very, very quickly. There's no injuries in base. Most of the time it's death. So you have to learn how to control this one big emotion. And I learned over time that I could break down the process of what I was doing, similar to a pilot about to take off from an airport. They've got this full checklist of everything they need to do to make that act safe. And that's what I did for my jumps as well. I'd be standing on the edge, your hands are shaking, all that emotion's taken over, and I'd just start going through this mental checklist of everything I would need to do in order to survive this jump. Have I packed my parachute correctly? Yep, that took an hour. It's done. It's perfect. Check my landing area. Yep, there's no wind. It's all clear. I do a little spit check off the cliff and I watch the saliva on the way down, how it changes shape or moves from left to right as it's heading down the face. It tells me a lot about what the wind is doing as I head down the face myself, which can change the dynamics of my wings. So I go through all these checklists. By the time I get to the bottom and I've ticked off every single one, knowing I've done it all perfectly, that fear and that shaking hand just calms down and it goes away. And only this euphoria takes over and you want to jump out into that void. So I just learned how to, I guess, dampen or control that fear response by being very prepared and going through that checklist. And now if any of those points as I was going down that checklist didn't stack up, I was out of there. So I would have walked down or climbed down or gone off probably twice as many objects that I jumped in my very short career. And you have to be able to do that as well.
The only thing that I've got to kind of relate to that, I work as a nurse, and when we're just about to intubate someone, we will run through a checklist, and that's like a final, like we're all feeling a bit nervous, everyone's a bit, antsy, and we run through that, checklist, which isn't mental, it's very much a physical, thing, and then we know, okay, everything's in place, we can, proceed, and that certainly, calms myself, calms the room, and that's I really like that. Yeah.
It's a great tool. Like we use it in everyday life, as you just mentioned, to mitigate risk and liability in our job, and you naturally do that all the time. But you start applying that to the emotional landscape, and it can be very, very handy as well. Even when I say going for a corporate event, doing a big talk, and I'm all nervous or a bit of anxiety coming up, so what am I anxious about, or what's scaring me about this event, and just break it down with a bit of a checklist. Like, actually, I don't know anything about this company. I haven't double checked that thing that happened last time. So then you go and fix up those two little points, and then the emotion or the emotional upgrade clears itself up. So it's a good tool to have in your toolbox for everyday life.
Yeah. As a reference to just how on different levels we're on right now, I called you, Greg, a couple of weeks ago. I was on a paddle. I was out training, and it was really strong currents, really cold. And again, I know how soft I'm going to sound here, but I'm a very average swimmer. And I come off my kayak. I couldn't touch. The current was strong. My kayak started drifting away. I couldn't breathe because how cold the water was, and I did start to panic a little bit. And I was like, I'm all on my own. No one knows I'm here. And then I just had to calm myself down and go, all right, you're shit at swimming, but you can go get your kayak. But yeah, so we're talking about jumping off cliffs to falling in, 2 metre deep water. But
Jono, it doesn't matter, mate, because it's the same emotion. Yeah, you're interacting with the environment. It's a dangerous situation. Plenty of people have died, and probably a lot more have died drowning in similar situations like that than have died in base jumping. So it's very relevant, the emotions you have. And all I'd say in that type of space, whenever you find yourself in that type of scenario, you just try and take a moment of pause before you run through your bit of a checklist and go, hold on a second, what's going on here? Take a breath. I've got my flotation device. Just hang on. Be cold, be scared, be in the water, but just take a few seconds to analyze stuff. It's when we don't take that pause, we just go, and try and swim for the bank. And you've left your flotation, you put yourself in a situation where you're cold, lactic acid building up, and, mate, within 10 strokes, it can all be over.
No, I did look at the bank for half a second, but, a lot less people are jumping off cliffs as well. But moving on.
Is that, I suppose, how you look to live your life every day? Is, like this sort of minimalist lifestyle and just pumping every second out of it?
Absolutely, mate. It's a very conscious decision my wife and I made probably 10 years ago, or probably even before that. It's a decision I made to stop trying to, I guess, slot myself into the normal way of life. I wanted to be a businessman at one stage and had a couple of gyms up in Sydney, and I was sort of chasing that, standard left and right of arc that everyone tries to go down, get the business, get the money, get the house and the boat and all that sort of stuff. Fortunately for me, that only lasted a few years where I was just absolutely miserable and said, right, this ain't for me. Let's sell everything we own and just, we actually moved over to Thailand and just trained in a training camp and had adventures, So we took a totally different tack. But that was a conscious decision. And about 10 years ago, we did the same thing, moved down to Tassie, tiny little shack in the bush where we are now, to be debt-free. We couldn't survive in Sydney or any other capital cities on the mainland, but down here we could buy cheap, fix this joint up, then we're debt-free. Then literally any money that comes above the line we could pump into adventures, whether that's small adventures around Tassie in Australia or big, big projects with the ocean rows and everything overseas. And, mate, there wouldn't be a day goes past. Literally, I took a phone call yesterday with a friend up in Sydney whose mate had just passed away. 50 years old, went to the hospital to get himself checked because he had a couple of, heart issues over that week. He was a bit worried. It was too busy, so he left and died in the car park. That's a legit story that happened yesterday. And every day or every week I hear stories like that, and it just reaffirms my choices in life, just to disregard the money, disregard feeding the ego and all the stuff that I used to love and cherish and still do a tiny bit every now and again, but to pump it all into experiences and fun, to get the most out of life. Because, mate, my car park could be tomorrow, it could be a week, it could be 5 years. Like, we all just don't know.
Yeah. Luke, I was interested if children and kids was ever kind of on your radar at all.
My wife and I, we've talked about this many times over the years, and we've always been very brutally honest with ourselves. If it was never like a hell yes, we're passionate about having kids and having that type of life, then it was always a no.
Yep.
And even the most recent conversation about that, it's still just a no. We've built and are living a fairly unique lifestyle these days, where we try and do 4 or 5 expeditions a year, and we're very much in love, and we have a great relationship, and we're living this sort of life. It would be a very different life if we decided to have kids, and it's just not a hell yes for us. So it's a no at this stage.
Yeah.
It was a couple of months ago you finished rowing. Was it New Zealand to Australia? Yeah.
Finally.
Was that a record time?
Yeah, myself and Grant, this was my second attempt and his 4th attempt at crossing the Tasman under human power. And, we smashed it, mate. We had a seamless mission finally. The first 2 times that my buddy Grant tried, he was rescued, the boat was destroyed. The 3rd time we tried together, we got destroyed out there and ended up back in Australia, but we self-rescued ourselves out, so we didn't need assistance. By the time this 4th time came around, we'd reassessed the whole project. We built a brand new boat from scratch. We decided on a new route from the top of the North Island in New Zealand, trying to get back to Australia. Prior to that, we're trying to do the southern route from Australia to New Zealand through that Southern Ocean, which was supposed to be in your favour. And, it's a fast route, but the waves are massive and you have, really cold water down there. A lot of that Southern Ocean influence from Antarctica comes through and just smashes you. So we thought we'd try this northern route with a big what if was the cyclones. So that was known as a cyclone alley, the northern route from New Zealand back to Australia, and doesn't get done. We were only like the 3rd team to have a crack that way. The first guy was in the 70s to ever do it. He was the very first. And then there was no one for many, many years, and we're going to be, the 3rd team to have a crack. Just because of that cyclone risk. If one comes along, it's literally game over. You're going to need rescue or you're not coming home. We were set up ready to leave from the top of the North Island as that real big cyclone hit Brisbane just recently. As it hit there, we literally shoved off that day. And because that huge weather system moved west and sucked all that bad air away, we had a beautiful high-pressure start. So everything was in our favour. So that first 4 or 5 days, we were flying. Then Mother Nature just stacked up another high pressure and another one. We had the perfect crossing for that 3 weeks you could ever imagine. The last couple of days coming in is when the weather started to turn, and we had a pretty, couple of spicy moments there at the end, but we got in after 22 days, which is the fastest it's ever been done under human power. So we're super pumped.
22 days. That is incredible. It's unbelievable. To be out in that open ocean as well. Again, we mentioned fear earlier. That's to me that feels terrifying. And you guys just. Yeah.
We did mention, Greg and I, to each other that we do run a risk with having Luke on, in the sense that what we're doing is hard. Like, we think it's going to be difficult, but we're going to look so soft. Like,
Just moseying down a river. You're just going to stay in the boat long enough. You know what I mean?
Mate, not at all.
It's not really life threatening. It's not really, extreme.
Yeah.
But what you guys are doing, it's one of my favourite trips of all time, hey?
Yeah.
When we did that trip, got Dad on board just to be our little tinny support boats. He was just fishing the whole way down. Mate, it was such fun.
Yeah.
Camping out every night. We took it much slower than what you guys are going to attempt. But it was just the perfect adventure. Safe. No one's going to roll up and kill you. You can literally drink the water. There's fish there if you want to eat them. It is just perfect, mate. I recommend that trip to everybody.
yeah.
I don't think people take me up on it, but I say go and do it because it's a beautiful part of the world and it's right there in your backyard.
Luke, do you build all your own vessels? Like the pedal boat for Bengal was, quite a unique thing. Your Atlantic Rose, how do you look at designing and creating, these unorthodox vessels?
Yeah, good question, mate. I've only ever attempted to build one, and that was my electric-powered little surf boat that I took up to Cape York. All the boats on the big expeditions, I mean, as you guys know, as you're starting to put together logistics and now you're talking about getting better pace and you're thinking, we need better gear, this, that, and the other. Well, then you weigh up, okay, what do we need to do if we have to survive out in the ocean for 2 or more months? All of our safety gear, rafts, water makers, solar, comms gear, navigation. So when you start to think about all the things you need for an ocean crossing in order to make it safe, it just takes it to this top tier. And the top tier builders in the world for these type of vessels, there's one in Europe that's pretty good, but the best are out of the UK with a company called Rannoch. Okay. So Grant especially, and myself, we've used Rannoch for nearly all of the vessels, and they just do an incredible job. They've tried and battle tested so many models over the years. So when it came to trying the Tasman for the 4th time, we approached Rannoch again, used their tried and tested model that they've used on the Atlantic, and then made a lot of tweaks for the Tasman. Because the Tasman, even though it's only a third of the distance of the Atlantic, it is a brutal stretch of water. So we needed to bomb-proof everything so it's not going to break, so a lot more fiberglass. We needed certain additions and subtractions on their current models. So we just really custom, tweaked it for the Tasman. And then we ship it all the way over from the UK. Well, we flew over first and tested it in the UK and then shipped it. Then we rode it across, and now we've shipped it back to the UK, and it's getting sold to a team that are going to do the Atlantic next year.
All right.
So in answer to your question, the top-tier builders for these ocean rowing vessels are out of the UK. When it came to the Cape York trip, where I wanted to, do something a little bit different, I took an old surf boat from a surf club, the big, double skull, bloody massive things. Yep. Gutted that, turned it into a little rowboat, but then put an electric outboard on the back, 6 panels, a couple of big truck batteries, and took that from Townsville all the way up to Lockhart River, right up near Cape York there. And that was an amazing trip. The max speed I could get out of it was about 6-7 kilometres an hour, only when the sun was going from about 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. Then I could manage my power draw. Outside of that, I could use the rowing and get in and out of the reefs or rivers or wherever else I'm staying. But, mate, that trip is probably one of the highlights out of my career, only because it was one of my first ever solos. Yep. My wife came on the first leg up to Cooktown, but she was terrified of all the crocodiles, and we were getting some really big seas, and it was fucking sketchy and she just didn't enjoy it. So she bailed out, and I carried on as a solo. And that changed the game for me. It was the first time where every decision I had to make myself, getting in and out of all the islands, battling the tides, always keeping an eye on crocs, unloading, reloading the boat, all that stuff to do by yourself is a monumental task. And it was super taxing. And I was sort of shitting myself a bit in the beginning, but by the end, I was really, really enjoying the whole thing. All the risk, all the exposure. Oh, mate, the crocs are next level. I had a couple of monster crocs creep up at nighttime. I set up like trip wires on these, it's like a military-grade trip wire set to a primer cap. So when they get tripped, it goes bang like a big shotgun sound, and it wakes you up so I could come out and get rid of the crocs. But I had some that crept up with the high tide, and I was sleeping in my little single tent just on the edge of this sort of reefy island thing, 500 clicks from anywhere. Nowhere was there other vessels or people, right? It's just me. And I heard this almost like a guttural growl, just like an exhale, and it instantly woke me up. It was that, primitive response in my reptilian brain just go bang, and I was full alert. Got my head torch, pointed it out, and there's this monster croc, probably 4 or 5 meters away at the top of the high tide. His head's probably 0.5 meter wide, 6 meters long, and I packed it. Unreal. Unreal. So I sat there with just my light on him for a few minutes, figuring out what to do, and I had to sort of get out and throw sticks at him and get him out of there. But yeah, that type of stuff was happening always every day. Hey? It was wild.
Luke,
Ridiculous.
how many potentially life-threatening situations you reckon you've been in? Where on another day, if the coin flipped the other way, she's all over.
It's a really good question. But I guess it's all a matter of perspective. If you're looking in from the outside, you would think 1,000 times, this guy's batshit crazy, always out there risking his life. When you look at it from where I'm sitting with, almost 20 years of experience and the skill set and everything that we know, it still looks pretty hairy, but a lot of it is controlled. As for real time, oh, mate, there'd probably be 6 in there. Let's say that, maybe 6 over the last 20 years of, wow, that was just pure milliseconds of luck that I'm still here. Yeah.
Wow.
But, mate, then I think back to my early days, post or even in the military or post-military, where it's just, alcohol and drug carnage. And I think, well, even those days, you're one hit away or one, car knocking you over or anything from nearly dying. And I'm always hesitant to answer those types of questions, mate, because I don't want people to think that if you go off on an adventure, you're going to die. You can definitely mitigate nearly all of the risks. Like that crocodile story, yeah, it sounds hectic, but I put a couple of tripwires in front of me knowing that these big bastards are going to eat me because I'm in their backyard. They eat people. Why not just come and eat me? So they're going to try. So you put a couple of things in the way and make sure they can't. Yeah, it sounds hectic, but it's a very controlled situation.
Okay.
And that's, I guess, the other side of the whole expedition life that you guys are finding out as well is what do we have to do this really cool thing, but to make sure that we come back to our family as well. And that's
I would think that the mental resolve of someone that goes through, homelessness and, real trauma is quite similar to the mental resolve of someone that's, trying to, work through these mega adventures. You know what I mean? It's, I just wonder if you've sort of, found a similar mindset through those challenges.
It's a question and a really good conversation. There's 2 sides to it. I talk about suffering a lot in my my speeches and some of my talks, because to get through the big expeditions and some of these, just brutal days where you've been awake for days, your body's destroyed, your mind's destroyed, you're just crying and you want to go home. I'd learned how to be grateful for that type of suffering in order for the volume and intensity of it to turn down a little bit so I could keep going with it. So just to be grateful in those moments allowed me to carry on and get through them. But there's a very big difference between suffering by choice and just suffering by circumstance. So it's a bit of a slippery slope to say that, you've got through this trauma in your life back here, so you should be able to smash this stuff over here. I think it's 2 different mindsets. Yes, there could be some narrative, and there is with me specifically, that when you had my rock bottom moment, waking up in jail, getting hosed down by the cops because you're just a drug addict, loser, that there was a seed of hope in that guy and this sort of desire for adventure and knowing that life is very finite, to then get himself out of that state and go on to this life of adventure. So I think that story, that narrative for me specifically, definitely carries through into the expeditions, because I still have that seed deep in me to keep going and doing more and more and more and more. But I don't think that would be the same for most people. A lot of people don't choose their suffering. Unfortunately, it does get forced on them through circumstance and and the like. So, but in saying that, overcoming adversity in any form, mate, whether it's, doing a hard training session, overcoming addiction, alcoholism, whatever, surviving on expeditions, it puts energy into your resilience bank, this thing, this foundation that makes up all of us is our, ability to handle the big bad world out there. And to overcome anything is going to add to that bank, and that's always a bonus.
I love that term, resilience bank, actually. But that's a great insight. Yeah, thank you, mate. Yeah, look,
good question, mate.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Some of the suffering you chose to go through on the Atlantic, 55 days, sleeping 2 hours on, rowing 2 hours, doing a 2-on 2-off thing. Did you do that for 55 days? Just that same pattern?
Yeah, mate. So that first ocean row that I was actually invited to, that row with 2 weeks' notice, because it was originally a British rowing team, 2 guys and 2 girls, that had planned this monster expedition. And then when they got to Portugal, their set-off point, one of the guys had appendicitis and had to pull out, so they were going to cancel their whole trip. And fortunately for me, they were drowning their sorrows in a pub where they actually met a buddy of mine in that same pub in Lagos who said, hold on a second, I know a guy who's into adventures. Let me call him, see if he wants to help you out. So I get this call from a team. They said, do you want to come and row the Atlantic? I knew nothing about ocean rowing, didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. Said yes straight away because that's the mindset I was in, just say yes to everything. Flew straight to London, down to Portugal, and got my first look at this ocean rowing boat. And then they're telling me, well, we're going to have a crack at this record. So we have to push on this trip. We've got 70 days worth of food. We're not sure how long it could take. But in order to get this record, we're going to have 2 people up rowing at all times. Okay. So you do 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 24 hours a day. And we stuck to that every day, bar 2 little storms that came through. When the big storms come through, you get inside those tiny little cabins you see at either end of an ocean rowing boat, seal that door. The door is then airtight and watertight, and you're sitting on a para anchor by this stage where it's just a long rope to a small parachute in the water that hooks into the current and stops you getting pitch pulp. But the boat then gets rolled, pushed under in the surf, pops up, rights itself. You're typically strapped in with a headgear on, and it's absolutely horrendous. So when you have 2 incidences like that where none of us were rowing, outside of that we're doing 2 and 2. When Grant and I were pushing on the Tasman, we found 1-hour shifts through the daylight the best, and then 2-hour shifts at night. During the heat of the day, and just to keep up the pace we wanted to try and maintain, 1 hour on, 1 hour off was the best from sort of sun up to sundown for us. But, mate, it's a brutal schedule. The sleep deprivation, the most sleep I could get on the Atlantic was like a 90-minute block. On the Tasman was sort of similar with a few naps here and there. On the Bay of Bengal with that silly pedal boat, mate, it was horrendous for sleep because the boat itself got to about 40 degrees inside. So when you finally had your 2 hours off, you crawl in there in this literally a sauna and just pour sweat. So that was probably the most brutal trip I've ever done in terms of sleep. Atlantic, there was 1 or 2 occasions where everything lined up in our favor, where the wave direction, wind direction, all of it, the current, all went the exact same way that we wanted to go. Then you can literally just stop, sit on the deck or sleep if you take that little risk, and the boat is going. You'll do 2-3 knots just with all of the nature pushing you that way. Yeah. But it is rare. So when we had that on the Atlantic, it's amazing. We had it twice on the Tasman as well. Grant had never had it before on 3 crossings. On this crossing, we had it twice, where everything just stacked up and you could just sit there, watch the navigation, have a sleep, sleep in shifts and try and gain back some of that energy loss from the weeks of brutality. So when nature finally stacks up, as you feel as well on the Murray, when everything goes in your favour on those rare days, make the most of them.
Do you follow on the socials? Do you follow the McLean brothers?
Mate, I'm following them now. I was chatting to their manager just the other day. Yeah,
right. That's for anyone not aware, they're currently in the middle of rowing the Pacific Ocean. 3 brothers from Scotland, and that really inspirational stuff doing it for clean water projects. And
smashing it. They're doing great.
Yeah, they are absolutely flying.
So I rode a bike from Perth to Adelaide when I was 19. We did 180k-ish a day, but I was only training up to about 100k a week, and that was enough, because, then you're out there doing it, and, it's the only thing to think about. Ned Brockman, he'd never run 100k before he's run across Australia. Where do you think, in your opinion, we have to be in those, months to weeks leading into this attempt? Like, how much training, like, how many kilometres do you think we need to be covering a week? What do you reckon is like a reasonable work to spot, considering that, we're both, the dads, and, like, we just can't be doing, 100k a day. Like, it's just unrealistic for us.
The answer to that one is depends. Okay. It depends on a lot of variables. Yeah. Someone like myself who has a foundation of strength and conditioning, so I always try and keep myself in this, call it an optimal state, ready for the phone call. I can get a phone call tomorrow, come to Nepal to do this peak, sweet, let's go. Get the phone call, come cycle this, yep, let's go, run, whatever. That's where I like to be. But that is not easy to attain, but attainable with my lifestyle. No kids, living in the bush, we've got our own gym. You can really set all of the parameters you need to be in this state of readiness. When you're like that, you can get off the couch, jump in a plastic boat, and go do the Murray. No worries at all, because you've got a foundation there. But you also need, getting back to that resilience bank, a mindset that will allow you to suffer. Because if you haven't prepared for that specific event, the level of physical and mental suffering will be higher. So you have to have a tolerance to know and handle what's coming. So I know if I get off the phone and take on a challenge I haven't prepared for, it's going to be a brutal couple of weeks, and then I'll settle in and be okay. So in answer to your question, when it comes to yourselves or anyone else who wants to do a big trip like you guys, it depends. What's your sleep like? What's your physical capacity at the moment? What's your resilience bank like? Have you got a reference point to what being awake for 12 hours and having screaming shoulders and back and everything feels like? Go through that list. And if we don't have any of that, well, shit, we've got to prepare. We've got to do some training. But to say that you need to be able to knock out 100k days in 10 hours before we can even start this thing, I don't think you ever set parameters like that. It's just pointless. Yep. It's just about being able to handle what's coming, and do I have the physical ability to not break down en route? I'm
a bit worried about the sleep deprivation and the body breakdown over time. But yeah, I'm prepared to suffer.
Yeah. I'm more slightly different in the sense Greg's a much better athlete than I am, but I've always had that thing in my sporting life growing up, being told from coaches and whatnot, even when I'm cooked, like I just don't have that thing where I stop. Like I'll just keep going sort of thing. And that's where, when I come up with this to start with, one thing that I was thinking about a lot was I really want to test it out. Like I want to see, because my body's broken down enough or my legs are broken down enough that I can't keep playing footy. So let's get the upper body moving, and I want to see if I can, just want to see how far I can keep pushing before I, lose it. But
it'll completely challenge mentally where we are at, right? Like it'll be an absolute test of mental resolve, and that's exciting.
One of the main things when you're doing these type of projects as a pair and a team is knowing, first you know yourself, how you're going to handle the suffering and the punishment, but then how do you guys work together when you're both in that state? When you're sleep deprived, when everything's screaming, can we still have an amicable conversation and do some problem solving and make critical decisions when we're like that? So as part of your preparation somewhere in the next 16 months, you don't have to do it on the water. It can just be, look, let's just throw a backpack on and go do 2 straight nights on a trail together and just walk 50 Ks or 80 Ks or whatever, just to take a bit of a physical toll, nothing that's going to damage you, but just to stay awake and chat to each other. Yeah. Just so you know, okay, he's really starting to piss me off now on, hour 42, but we got to make some decisions about which way to go, left and right. Can you get through those little scenarios? And that's the stuff that is like the glue on expeditions. If you have that in a team, you can get through anything. But what I've seen time and time again on expeditions with newcomers to real challenging projects is they get into that sleep-deprived state, critical decisions, maybe a couple of egos, and it just all goes to shit and everyone quits. So you just need to splice in a couple of those type of training things to get through that stuff.
Me and Greg have grown up with each other since we were 3 years old, so we do feel like we know each other inside out sort of thing, which can only help. There's no one else I would even think about trying to attempt something like this with, because it just end badly. For sure.
Yeah, mate, that's it. And that lifelong respect goes a long way on big projects, yeah? Good stuff.
Your expedition through Papua New Guinea, obviously that got a bit wild. Do you want to run us through what happened out there?
Yeah, mate, that was a while ago now. I was on my 7 Summits projects, and one of the 7 Summits is a mountain in West Papua called Karsten's Pyramid. To get to the mountain back then, you had to go through the jungle to get to base camp, and then the actual climb is only about a 13-hour rock climb, start to finish, so not a crazy project. But the 7 days through the jungle, you're going through a lot of different villages and districts and regions, and they all have some real big problems over there with tribal warfare and everything else. So we had to hire about 42 porters, an equal amount of men and boys and women and dogs and kids from every village just to keep everyone happy. So we had an entourage of about 42 people going through the jungle, and it was amazing. These guys and girls were just so resourceful, got us through the jungle, got us to base camp, and then they went back down valley, camped out in a big old cave system where they smoke it all out while we climbed the hill. Summited, no problem, back down to base camp just as a huge monsoon came through and tore up the hill, but we were there just celebrating by that stage. But back down in the cave system, all of this monsoonal rain had seeped through and dislodged a big portion of the cave roof that came down and crushed the porters where they were camped up. And it really mangled one of these young guys. And in their world, it was an eye for an eye. That's how they live in these parts of the world. Still quite primitive. Like, these guys are wearing wooden penis tubes and they got bows and arrows. So that's the state of development over there in a few of these remote regions. So it was an eye for an eye. A few of the elders from the group that we had with us come charging up the valley with machetes and spears, just, ready to, I guess, kill or maim one of us to replace, their guy that had been crushed. Fortunately, we had a good interpreter with us who managed to calm down that situation, and we promised to go down in the daylight, sort everything out, see what we're going to do with this body and whatever. And that calmed it down a bit. They took off back down the valley. So myself, one of the other guys, the interpreter, we went down to the cave system the next morning, left the rest of the team at base camp, got in there, and it was super tense. We pretty much thought we were going to walk into an ambush and just get messed up. But we got over to the body. Everyone's a bit emotional and crying and angry. Blood coming from the ears, proper wreck, this kid, young guy. I thought, oh, shit, he's dead. What are we going to do here? And Dean, the guy I was with, he was a mountain rescue guide over in the US, so he had his basic drills down, drops down, checks the chest, just doing a bit of ABC, and this young guy was barely breathing, just hanging on. So we're like, oh, wow, we could maybe do something here and try and rescue this kid out and save our lives, literally, because we're 7 days from a remote village. We don't know where we're going. We need these guys to get us out of here, so we got to try and make some peace. The only thing we could do with this kid was he was probably 19 years old, this guy, a young man, was try to rescue him over the mountain to an area called the Freeport Mine. There's a huge open-cut gold mine on the other side of this peak that was like off limits. We were told, do not go there. It's got massive humanitarian rights issues. They're at war with the Free Papua movement, this big militia group, so you're just not supposed to go there. But that was our only chance to try and help this young man. So we built a stretcher out of a tarp and with the porters humped this guy up valley, over the mountain ridge line, down into the pit. Dean and I flagged down literally a mining truck going past down in the pit. And then they brought out the mine ambulance. We were just pumped, over the moon. They took this young guy away. And we thought, bloody happy days, how good's this? We've saved a life and sorted everything out. Afterwards, when we're sitting down with the elders, or the older members of our group, the villagers, we were asking them a few what-if questions. Okay, the young guy's been taken to the hospital, all good. we don't know what's going to happen with him, but if he does die, what's going to happen when we get back to Shagapa? This was the village that we started at.
Yeah.
What happens when we get back to Shagapa and his family is there? Are we going to be safe? And they didn't really give us a straight answer. And we asked them a few more hypotheticals like that, and we just couldn't get a straight answer out of these guys. So as a team, we thought, oh, look, we got to try and get ourselves out of this situation. We can't trust our porters now to go back into the jungle with them for 7 days and get back to this remote village. We don't know what's going to happen. So we thought we could surrender ourselves to the mine maybe, and they could help us, extract out of country. In that 24-hour period when they helped us with the rescue, but then we turned up at their door again or on the side of the pit again to ask for help as now a group of 8 climbers, help us get out of West Papua. The actual Free Papua movement had attacked the mine in that 24-hour period. They had burned a mining vehicle, burned some miners. It was in full lockdown. They're extracting all like the American CEOs and shit by a helicopter. It was in full lockdown. So when we turn up and say, help us, they had this Indonesian sort of SWAT-esque style group there cordoning everything off. So no, go. When we pushed the issue a little bit, we were thrown into a shipping container and detained. And we ended up staying there for 5 days or 6 days in the container. But it was on, my memory's a little bit hazy, the 4th or 5th day. As luck would have it, it was during a security changeover. So they were watching us in this container, and every day they'd come in the morning and say, go back into the jungle. We don't want you here. And we'd say, we can't go into the jungle. We don't know where we are or where we're going. So they just lock us back up. On one of those days, during a security changeover point, a random couple of miners, Australian miners, bludging, were just doing a tour of the pit before they get flown out via the rescue, and they found us in this container. And they said, what are you blokes doing here? And we'd say, mate, and we're telling them this story about how we're held here by this security team, and they're not letting us come into the mine, not letting us go out, whatever. And they actually notified mine security, the embassies, and everyone that we were getting detained there in this container. And then everything started to move. But it's a bit of a long story, but there was a huge political issue at this mine. The security firm that was in charge of protection had no communication with the top echelon of bureaucrats from America that run this gold mine. I guess they wanted a bit of separation from all the humanitarian rights issues at the bottom. But they didn't even know we were there. So when they finally got notified that, guys, there's a bunch of Aussies and Europeans stuck in your mine in a container on the outskirts of the pit, they're like, oh, shit, here we go. They end up putting together their own little team to try and circumvent security and smuggled us out, dressed as miners, in these mine vehicles at like 2 a.m. to a waiting helicopter that flew us out to Tamika, this little town down in the valley, and then flew us out to Bali on a 737. So that was the, I guess, fast answer to that.
Fast? That could be a movie.
Yeah.
Like, the long version could be a movie for sure.
Mate, it was a wild time, and I was fresh out of the military. These were my first ever expeditions, but I was like, I guess still pretty spun up for the military at that stage. I was like, this is fine. This is great. Yeah. We're getting a bit of a chicken every day. If it all goes pear-shaped, I'll just go through the jungle myself. I was in that type of mindset where I was, I guess, unbeatable and still very driven by the ego. But for the poor other climbers with us, mate, they're crying, and it's a bloody traumatic experience for a normal person. Yeah. So when I look back on it now, you look at it through a different lens for sure.
From my understanding, it's actually really tricky, like to be allowed to go to Antarctica. How did, and then not to mention climbing the tallest mountain on Antarctica, but how'd that all come about?
Mate, it's one of the most amazing places in the world, and I highly recommend anyone that does have the chance, even if it costs you half your mortgage, get down there. It is a beautiful part of the world, Antarctica. When I wanted to go down and climb Vincent Massive, which was the biggest mountain in Antarctica, it's not necessarily a huge peak. It's just under 5,000 meters high, but it's the landscape and the logistics to get there that make this quite a unique and exciting adventure. We booked in with a commercial guiding company who had I guess not the rights, but I guess the opportunities to run trips right down in Antarctica. But it's controlled by another company called ALE. So they run all the logistics on the continent for all the scientists and, government officials and all of us crazy adventurers. So it's a really controlled landscape, mainly for, I guess, the environmental reasons are a big reason they control everything like that, but also just the logistics. It is so hard to get down there. So these guys set up a base every year. They carve out a blue ice runway that people can then buy on and utilize. And we flew down from the tip of South America down to the ALE base, where they've also got small fixed wing aircraft. The logistics is amazing. We transfer to a small aircraft, fly out further into the hills. You land at the base of the glacier. Then you start loading up your sled and you start sledding up towards the mountain. Then you start climbing the mountain once you get to the base and you summit. It took us a couple of cracks to summit it due to wind and severe cold. Even though we're climbing in summer, it's still getting down to minus 20, minus 30, most nights.
Yeah, right.
The beautiful part about Antarctica in summer is the sun doesn't go down. It gets to this sort of twilight period where it dips just below the horizon and then it just comes back up again. So you've got plenty of time to traverse glaciers, climb on good snow and ice through that twilight night period where it's really safe, and then you can sleep up during the day when all the snow gets really soft and avalanches and danger kicks in. But yeah, it's such an amazing part of the world down there. I've been trying to get back forever, mate, but the cost is out of control these days. I looked at doing a continental traverse, a bit of a ski traverse, and the numbers coming back with $250,000 US dollars and upwards. So it is massive to get down there. The cheapest way that a lot of people do experience Antarctica is to go on, some form of a cruise ship, the big cruise ships or a sailboat or something that goes across the Drake Passage and gets you down to the peninsula there, and you go and see some penguins and climb a little bit and muck around on the ice, and then you're back in under 2 weeks. So that's an option. I've got some mates that run proper sail yachting trips down there for extreme adventurers, but even they're pretty punchy on price as well. Right. There's a famous explorer named Mike Horn who's probably done it the best, but he had a monumental sponsor, took his own yacht to one side of Antarctica, got off his yacht, his captain stayed on board. He then skied and kite skied all the way across Antarctica, 5,000 kilometres, and got picked up by his skipper again on the other side. Unbelievable way to do it. Yeah, but he didn't have any permits. He just said, screw it, I'm doing my own thing, because no one would let him do it, yeah?
I was listening to you talk about how the anxieties of leaving the social norms eventually dissipate and you get that sort of security in yourself and the way that you're living. I just wonder if you'd be able to sort of talk a little bit more about, that transition from living within social norms to then just, really taking control of your own life and living how you want to live, and how that becomes so rewarding for you.
Yeah, bloody oath, mate. That was a huge moment in life for me, is making that transition. Yeah, as we're going through life, we are very, very conditioned to do, what is normal. Everything's structured around developing, I guess, a product of a good human that can slot into society, do good things in this certain way. And so it's all about a perspective of security, how I feel secure. So I followed the bouncing ball, and you do your schooling and university if you go that way, or you get your trade, and then you're ticking along and you have your little holiday, and then, I've got to buy my house now, and I might start a business or whatever. Do this. But it's a very clean-cut way to go through life, and it feels secure because it's normal. The wage comes in every Friday or every fortnight, and I'm good to go. I know where my bills are, and I'm secure. But it's just a perception of security. It's not secure at all. We just tell ourselves it is, and we felt this through COVID. We feel it when we lose a job, or you lose your house. Like, it was just all perception at the end of the day, but it's a story we tell ourselves to keep going along and feeling good. When you finally decide to stop that, you've given up your job, you've sold all your stuff, you've just moved in this total different direction, whatever that is for you. It doesn't mean you got to run into the bush and wear a hair shirt. It can be something totally different. There is this tumultuous period of emotions where you believe you have lost all your security. I don't have my wage coming in anymore. I don't know who I am. I've got no purpose. There's this, very incredible moment where you have to figure all that out. And it's full of anxiety and fear and sadness or whatever else comes out of you. But when you transition over, when you just back yourself 100% and go for it, and then you finally get paid for doing something that you love to do and always wanted to do, you go, yes, I've made my money. This builds a bit of security in yourself. When you've pulled off an objective that you set out to do, bang, there's a bit more security as well. So then you feel like, oh, okay, so my perception of security now is when I need to make money, I'm going to go and do that. But when I want to do this thing I love doing and want to do, I'm going to do that, knowing that I've got the skill set and the ability to do this thing when I need to do it. That is security for you now. But it's this gap in the middle that stifles most people making the transition. And like I said, whatever that is for you, making that transition, I mean, what is normal, what is safe and secure to where I really want to be. Okay? So I just say to people, figure out, do it opposite. Figure out where you want to be. How do you want to live every day? How do you want to wake up, earn your money in your dream scenario? Okay, start there. Then we work backwards. What do I need to do to get that? Is it a skill set thing? Is it an environment thing? I'm in the wrong place right now. Whatever that is, start chip away at it. More than likely, it's just going to be a perceptional error that we can fix like that. And then we can try and make that transition. And the most beautiful part about it is, mate, in today's world, in Australia, we have this safety net under us. You can try and make that transition, totally screw the pooch, come back and start where you were. There is nothing holding you back from trying. So just go and do it.
I love that, Luke.
Great advice for sure. Yeah, very cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Luke, again, mate, for you to, give these talks in your time professionally and to offer to do this for us here today, helping us, raise awareness and, spread the word of what we're doing and, who for, is super generous and, you're an inspiring man, Luke. So, look, thanks heaps. Thank you so much for your time.
It's an absolute pleasure, lads. I love what you're doing, and please keep reaching out, asking questions. Yeah, you're inspiring the next generation that's coming after you, so don't slow down. Keep pushing. Sweet as, boy.
We won't hold you, mate. Luke, thanks heaps.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
Take care, all right? I'll chat to you soon.
Sounds great. See you, mate.
See you, mate. Bye.
So, thanks again to Luke for coming on that chat. We're keeping this as short as possible to try and squeeze in as much of that chat as we can, because there's not one bit in there that we're thinking, oh, this is dragging on or getting boring. Like it was just a great chat. It was just really, really good stuff all the way through. And thanks again, obviously, to Snowies for allowing us to use their podcast studio, all the support they're giving us at the moment with gear and whatnot as well. Jump on the socials if you can. Murray Miles for Mobilise. The Stubbies, who have done our intro song from the start. Adelaide band, very cool bunch of guys. They had only the one song on Spotify. It is now doubled to 2.
I mean, song on Spotify. It's called Louisiana. Make sure you go and give that a listen as well.
Check them out, absolutely. And the last bit of news, big bit of news, we have another sponsor that's jumped on board, Clean and Cut Bros, a gardening maintenance crew that are chucking us some cash as well, based in South Adelaide. So thanks to those guys, and we really appreciate every bit of support we can get from us, eh?
That's it from us here today. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.
I'm picking up tomorrow when I'm coming down.